Hey guys, Shadylikeatree here, and welcome into Smite Saturday. I got some Amu's on Cobb. He is the Mayan god of the bees. He's a hunter, probably the lowest tiered hunter. But I'm trying him out because apparently he's very, very good for some reasons. He doesn't really fit the meta too well, I don't think. I think that there's a lot of disadvantages to him. He's not one of the more higher damage hunters. He's more of an attack speed hunter, so you'll see I build a lot of attack speed items with crit, trying to just be basically a machine gun cob, which is actually what I call him when I play him regularly. But anyway, today's topic is about gaming, because I haven't talked about gaming in a real long time. But something that's been kind of on my mind lately is, are games going to ever live up to the hype anymore? I've noticed a lot, especially in my own reviews and my own thoughts when I'm thinking about some of the games that have come out in the last, 3 to 5 years. Even the games that are outstanding. For the most part, games just don't live up to the hype, and that's probably because we have very good marketing people and very good PR people. But also, I think to some degree, the reason why games don't live up to the hype these days is because I think we've seen a lot, maybe not everything. I'm kind of inclined to think that we've seen everything we can possibly see on a number of different fronts, but on some level, I just don't think there's enough room for innovation to make things fun. Because anytime you see a new game come out or a big franchise tries to do something different, well, they say, oh, well, it's like X, Y, and Z, or it's like bloody, 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 blah. And there's no real, this is its own game, there's nothing like it anymore. I think we need a fresh genre, maybe, and we need fresh writing, and we need a fresh game. I think the last really exceptional game to come out was in 2013 when The Last of Us came out. We've been let down by a number of games. The last few Call of Duties have been bad. I really like The Last Infamous, but a lot of people thought it was a dud. We've had 2 really bad Assassin's Creeds. Murdered Soul Suspect was really a 7 out of 10, even though it could have been even more awesome. Just to name a few. But I think all in all, we're kind of out of these new and different storylines that make things great. I know that the Watch Dogs was a total letdown, and that's mostly because Ubisoft just, I don't even know what to call what they did, but it was not a fun game to play at all. It was tedious, it was boring, it was... I didn't even finish it, but I ended up watching some videos on YouTube on how the story ends, and I'm like, this is really your writing? Like, it was just atrocious. And they're supposed to be fixing Watch Dogs 2, but I don't know how they're going to be able to fix it. I really don't. Titanfall was boring. The list goes on and on and on. With few exceptions, it seems there's just boredom and across the board, it feels like. And I'm not really sure I know how to fix it. One of the things I put in my notes to talk about in this video was, how can we fix it if what was good in the past isn't going to be good enough now? So what's worked before won't work now. If game developers were to make, remake the early Marios, for instance, or even, let's say even Ocarina of Time. Let's just throw out Ocarina of Time because it's widely considered to be one of, if not the best game ever. So let's just say, they wanna make Ocarina of Time now. Well, all those elements have already been done. We already have an immersive story. We already have that sort of semi-open world. We already have, the advanced graphics of that time. All of this. And so Ocarina of Time, while, when did that game come out? Like 15 plus years ago. I think it was 1997, 1999, something like that. That game was head and shoulders above everything else at the time. If they were to even make it the best they could for today's time, I don't think that game is as good as it is in whatever year it came out, some 15 odd years ago. The original Marios are right in the same boat. Yes, they're fun for nostalgia's sake. Yes, they're a good story. Yes, they're fun. But do they stand the test of time against, if they were released today, would that game be a fun game for today? I am inclined to think it wouldn't be. as I missed my stinger right there, which that was really kind of dumb. I should have picked that back up. But anyway, would they have been this commercial and the cultural gaming successes that they are today? I don't think they are. I really don't. And that's not to say I'm not bashing on those games, because I think those games are exceptionally good. They're fun. But I think that we're also, to some degree, much harder on games today than we were many, many years ago. I think there's just so much more involved now, and there's so many layers to it that it's just impossible, I think, to kind of really encompass and kind of surpass the good parts of yesteryear. One of the problems with Titanfall was that it was boring. It was stale. It only had a couple of different types of matches. It had no single player, this, that, and the other. And I think that what makes that kind of boring is that there's just not that much to do. And I think another kind of element to what will games live up to hype, can we have another great game, is not only the games itself, but it's just the sheer quantity of these games. It's not uncommon these days to have multiple companies releasing multiple games a year, or in the case of the Call of Duties of the world and the Assassin's Creed of the world, they release a game every 12 months plus or minus a week. And I think you can only do so much in a 2-year development cycle, or even a 3-year development cycle, especially with how complex things are these days. And to make a really great game, it takes a number of years. The Last of Us, I think, was in development and writing for upwards of 5 years. It was something completely different. And even something that starts out completely different. I'll give another Naughty Dog example of Uncharted. After a while, just grows stale. The third one wasn't as good as the first two. I have high hopes for the fourth one with all the new things they're implementing. It's the same with the new Assassin's Creed that they're bringing about. I think that some of the new gameplay elements that they have a part of that will be significantly better than some of the ones in the past. But at the same time, I think we all kind of have to just realize that, we have to go out of our way as gamers to demand a better game. Kind of another element to this, I think, is that a lot of games, what would be considered, the final product and what they would get you to buy, they can, these days, they can use the internet to their advantage. Gaming companies, they can use the internet to their advantage. And they can say, well, this isn't quite ready yet, but you know what, we can do this later. Grand Theft Auto did this, where we had basically, it was... I think it was a few weeks of no online, and then for the first couple of weeks of online were completely borked. And then it took, 2 years to get Heist, something like that. And I think that is a perfect example of why Grand Theft Auto, to me, while it was exceptionally good, once they've got all this stuff out and it's a lot of fun, you kind of have to wait 2 years from its original release to get that experience. And so a lot of people aren't even going to get that full experience. There's plenty of people all over the world that don't have good internet, let alone great internet, to have these experiences. Kind of also with the digital age, you have to look into, mobile gaming these days. Everyone's got games on their iPads, their iPhones, their Droid phones, all of their, mobile and portable devices. Some TVs even have games now, which is completely weird. And those games can't even compare to the mega hits of years past on the quality level. I think that a fair portion of them are merely designed to just get you to spend money. I'm thinking of Candy Crush is only designed to make you spend money, and they're kind of very simple games that really don't have a whole lot of depth. The idea is that you pay, it's either free or you pay a small amount of money to kind of get it right away. At the start, and then after that moment you spend time and money trying to just continue to beat simple levels. It doesn't have any depth to it. It doesn't talk about any true themes that are really prevalent and kind of to some degree necessary to make a really outstanding game. You're never going to see a fully in-depth Last of Us or Uncharted or Final Fantasy or what have you on a mobile device, just because there aren't people don't think they can make money, or they don't care to make money, or the average, well, and I think to some degree also the average player doesn't give two craps about that game, and wouldn't take the time to play it just because of the nature of the platform, which isn't any fault of anyone, I don't think. I just think it's the nature of the platform to some degree, but at the same time, it's part of the problem. I also think it's not about the games to some degree, and I wanna kind of spend the last bit of this video talking about that. While it is about the games, and it is about what is being played, and what the options are, and kind of how much it costs, to make a game, and to play a game, and to kind of get the full experience out of some games. I think too a lot of it's got to do with culture. When games first started coming out 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have the same demands as a society, and the same demands of the games, as I mentioned before. But kind of on a societal level, it seems like we just complain today to complain. I've seen and heard and discussed this a lot, but it seems as though no one's ever really truly happy with a game, despite how fun that experience might be. I'll give an example of... I'll use Watch Dogs. Let's just use Watch Dogs as an example, because I think that was kind of my royal bust of 2014. For me, at least, it was. There were a lot of really cool things that game did. It had a lot of... I think the storytelling was bad, yes, but I think they could have gone a different direction with it in the end. But a lot of the elements with that game can be easily overlooked if you're willing to overlook them. Yes, the driving's a little funky, but and it's not as good as Grand Theft Auto. I think that was kind of the chief complaint, was that your car kind of drove like a block of wood at times. Was one of the chief complaints I saw. I also saw that the hacking wasn't. It was more tedious than fun, as it had been in the past, I think, which is to say something of it, because it was supposed to be this kind of hacking action adventure game, and it ended up being kind of not as fun. And I think kind of the hype surrounding that game was kind of maybe too much, and they delayed it, I think, 3 times, maybe 4 times. I think that was supposed to be a console launch for PlayStation, and it ended up not coming out until like 2014 or something like that, maybe. I don't really remember the timeline of it, because it's been so long since that game has come out, and I've actually thought about and played that on the regular. But our hype as a gaming culture, society, whatever you want to potentially call it, I think was so high for that game that there was no way it was going to live up to it. And I know that there's some other people in the past who have discussed that and talked about it, but at the same time, that's part of the equation. No matter where the hype is, it's part of an equation of what will make the game good. If a game is promised to be something, and it's not delivered, or not delivered to what our imaginations are, then it fails. No matter how good it might be, it still fails. And the thing is that we all see how good X game has been, or we see how good Y game has been. We know how good The Last of Us was. We know how good the driving in GTA is. We know how awesome of a gameplay mechanic this game has, or this mechanic has. And we can't take the best mechanics out of all our games and make a special game, because it just doesn't work like that, I think, to some degree. But it also... we're dealing with different companies and different kind of creative leaders, and different kind of genres and stories that we're trying to tell with our games. And we can't take those elements we can't, use all those elements in the same game. It just doesn't work like that. Even though that's probably the best way to make a great game every year, is to just try to improve on the best elements from games in years past. Which is why, a lot of the franchises see a lot of success. The Call of Duties, I've talked about them a lot in this video. The Call of Duties, the Assassin's Creeds, those types of franchises, if you will, are the ones that have kind of the most success, kind of moving forward. And when I say success, I mean sheer dollar success, not necessarily, or well, not to really in those cases, consistent success on the on a formula of an exceptional game every year. Although I do really like the last few Call of Duties. I think that we had COD 4 was really great. I think Black Ops 2 was really outstanding. I think Modern Warfare 2 was really great. But I'm not the biggest fan of Modern Warfare 3. But I think outside of maybe Modern Warfare 3, I think each Call of Duty has been good by its own standard. But we always compare it to the first Call of Duty we play. We always compare it to the one that brought us into the franchise. A lot of people will say this. And Hutch has talked about this a number of times, where he says, and he's kind of the camp where, the first Call of Duty that you play is always going to be the best Call of Duty that you play. And a lot of people say for a lot of people it's COD 4. And they kind of say, and they kind of forget about martyrdom, and they kind of forget about frag times 3 and how BS the M16 was at the start of the game, and a number of other different factors. But for me, what makes Call of Duty 4 better than Modern Warfare 2 or better than Modern Warfare 3, I think is just the enjoyment we get out of it. And at the end of the day, what makes a good game is whether or not we enjoy it. And I think we're being also too hard on our games. We should demand top of the line, but at the end of the day, they're not going to be able to deliver a home run every single time. It's just not possible. I've played Game Dev Tycoon. I know how it works. And look at me here playing some serious defense, trying to defend the portal as best I can. But anyway, I think we're too hard on what we consider to be a good game. If a game has even the slightest of issues, I think we take it too seriously, and we don't appreciate it for what it is. There's a lot of people that have complained about The Last of Us being slow in the start, or not being enough female presence in the game, or a number of other complaints. But at the end of the day, it's a cinematic and storytelling masterpiece that nobody can really, at least nobody that I know of can kind of appreciate what it means to have that game. Sure, there are problems with every game. As I look on my gaming shelf, I talked about Grand Theft Auto and how it took them basically 2 full years after the original release to kind of finish the game. How Lego Marvel, you get stuck in sometimes. Infamous Second Son was kind of repetitive. Watch Dogs was super repetitive and the driving sucked. Call of Duty Ghosts had too big of maps for the online multiplayer. I could go on with all the games on my shelf, but why put you through that? So I think that while we ask a lot, and we should ask a lot of our games, I think we need to look inside and see what it is we truly want, and what we can be not only happy with, but what we should be happy with. Because what we can be happy with and what we should be happy with, I think, are two different things. And I'm not at all advocating here that we say, oh, well, our games should be worse so that way they're not always bad. I don't think that's the case either. I think we should try as a culture, as an industry, to make the very best games possible. But I think that we're going to continue to be disappointed unless something changes. And, I've offered a number of different solutions and a number of different potential changes that we could maybe go with in the future. But I think it's up to everyone to kind of just figure out how to best make that happen. Anyway, guys, here in the final minute or so, I just wanted to thank you very much for watching, and see what you guys think of this commentary, and kind of the topic of are we asking too much of our games? Can we have games as good as they are now? I'm convinced. I think we can. I think that we absolutely can. I just think we have to figure out a way to kind of live with some of the things that we live with now in an ever-changing kind of industry and an ever-changing model. Because moving forward, games are only going to continue to evolve and change, especially as devices change, as the home console changes. And maybe we shift more towards PC. I've heard that being a thing that might actually end up happening. Who actually knows what the end of the line we'll talk about, or the next step, because I don't think there will ever really be an end of the line when it comes to gaming. But we have to kind of look and see where that line is going to be, and where that next kind of shift is going to be, and demand a certain level of I'll say goodness, for lack of a better word. And when that time comes, I think we'll all be for the better. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think down in the comments. If you like the video, leave a like. I'm Shady Like a Tree, and thanks again for watching. Have a good one.